Hi, I'm Seamless, and this is the fifth 20K tutorial video. It's a new day. This is the first one of today's, and I'm going to keep doing them until I can't, or until I have to do something else. But this one is on KOAN Sounds Mr. Brown bass. This was requested by PrimaryCrusaders on the Reddit thread. I want to point out that you guys keep asking me to like make sounds on the YouTube comments or my Facebook. I'm not going to read any of those. I'm only going to read the Reddit thread, and that's just more or less control, like keeping it all in one spot, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to keep track of all the requests. Later, when I start the actual series where we are doing requests for one video a week, that's when you ask for the request in the comments, and then the highest voted one ends up being the one that I do. That's not this series, just to make sure you know. Anyway, this is one of those ones where I totally get the process of how it was made, but I, for some reason, am not able to make it exactly. But this is how far I got. So clearly what's happening is that there's a distorted filtered bass underneath very short, very harsh reverb of some kind. I just use normal fruity reverb just for this one, but you can use whatever you want to do that. I also use Harmor to make this because the kind of the sort of sound that they had kind of sounded like there's like just the smallest amount of sort of formaty nature, and that usually for my ear denotes a bandpass kind of filter of some kind. And I didn't do a terribly complicated one, but this one is actually a variation on one of my other presets. And what I have here is I have the crude bandpass setting on the first filter, and this one is with some resonance with a high width, so that it's kind of dispersed. And then I also offset it down quite a bit because I didn't want it to overtake the filter sound. I have this filter mapped to the modulating X because I didn't want to go full filter on the whole spectrum. I just wanted a very small part of it, and then I picked out which part of it was, and then I also did the double curve thing on the line type so that I could make this sort of sharp automation. And what this does is when the line moves through it back and forth, it forces it through this particular behavior, which causes the automation to be sharper sounding kind of thing. That's what that does. All right, so in the drop downs, we have various things going on. So right off the bat, I have order 4 unison, which is usually is a whole 2 more than I usually have on basses, but that's what's up. And then in the harmonic unison pitch window, I am not unisoning the low frequencies. Those are staying solid the whole way through. You can kind of see how like these are moving, but these are not. That's to keep the bass solid. I'm pretty sure in the KOAN version, it sounded like there was a separate sub, that whatever they were doing was being modulated into a separate sub. And I think it's because you kind of hear like, in the arrangement of it when they had it in the track, it cut off a lot, and so it sounded to me that either the bass was originally a sample of some kind that they were modulating through a filter and then the reverb, or the reverb filter bass that they created, they read it out as a sample and they arranged it like that as a sample, and then they had a sub bass underneath it to keep everything nice and solid. That's just, of course, conjecture, but that's kind of what it sounded like to me. Cool things to note about this particular bass is that small changes to particular parameters create large differences. One thing I like to do a lot is to move the detune to whole values. So like by default, it's at 1. So for metallic sounding kinds of basses, especially when we're using it with the reverb like that, having higher values tend to sound pretty okay. And then the lower value has a kind of, it's low feeling, it's very low. The pitch and phase, if you change these even a little bit, especially because I'm automating it to shut off really fast. I have another filter on it, which is why you're not hearing anything. But the point being is that when it's automated like this, right-click this, go to Edit Articulator, and the very first one on the envelope is means that it'll engage for a second, and then the unison will be applied and it'll be moved around. And then when it moves back, it'll still have a little bit of difference. So but then that difference is solid. It doesn't modulate itself. So that's what's up with that. And then also in the local EQ, I have a little bit of weirdness going on here to try and attenuate some of the things that happen in the lower end of the spectrum. And there were reasons for this, but I ended up actually mostly correcting it using EQ in post. But I left that there just because I built that, and then I built the sound off of it. So then I didn't want to screw with it. Yeah. So in the main channel, I have the EQ, which getting rid of that second or third harmonic amplitude that I don't really like. And then I also have a low pass filter. And that sound difference is why I wanted a low pass filter. I have like a no Q value, no resonance on it, because all of the resonance and high frequency action is already being taken place in the band pass filter. The low pass filter and the band pass filter are largely following the same automation. Like the peaks are where they're supposed to be, but you see the filter is weighted differently, and that is to create the kind of wappy sort of like fast action. So and then what I have here is I busted over into the reverb channel. The reverb channel is separate entirely because it kind of sounded like that they had some post effects on the reverb in the one they had done. I like it to put on a phaser. I also EQ'd it before it to eliminate some of the low frequencies. And then EQ to taste. And also the post EQ is also to taste. The way that this sort of harsh metallic reverb works is that it's a very short decay. And it's also a very short room area, because the larger room area actually decays a little bit, even if the decay is at 0 kind of thing. And then the dry is all the way off, and the wet is all the way up, because this channel is only the wet. It's only wet reverb. This might have been better served to be used by convolution reverb, but I wanted to demonstrate using the basic reverb type, because this isn't something that needs to be necessarily FL based entirely, but like the idea, of course, is that there's a bandpass distorted saw based kind of harsh bass modulating, and then with a low pass on top of that, and then that's being reverbed harshly with 0 decay. And that decay is also very loud. Like the reverb is kind of loud in comparison to the dry sound. So if you see here in these two patches here, these two mixer inserts, the first one is the main bass, and it's going into channel 3, and the next one's the reverb is going in channel 3. But you see the main bass is actually turned down a little bit as it's going into channel 3. And that's because I want the reverb to actually be very prominent, as opposed to the dry sound being as prominent as it could be. Then I'm compressing it, but I'm also doing interesting things in the compression. I'm doing a little bit of transient shaping. And what I'm doing is you kind of see how the line is moved out a little bit at the very bottom here, and this is so that when it gets to be almost at nothing, at super negative infinity, dB, whatever, when it gets almost there, it just shuts off, and it creates this very sort of sharp action. You can kind of see what I mean when you look at the compression line. So this is it compressing it up, and it's bringing it up a little bit because I moved up, and then it's bringing it, and it's down, and it's killing it in between the two sections. And that's kind of mimicking the sort of sample based editing that I feel like happened in the original track, and in such a way that it does it for you. So like when the automation is getting low, the sound just cuts off, as opposed to not cutting off, which is what it would have done anyway. So recap: harsh, sort of distorted, kind of filtery bass with some kinds of filters on it. This is probably something that would have been easily done with Massive. Like you could have taken any of the even mildly formatty sounding wavetables, distorted it, put like a screen filter or something like that on it, like a very low with like a low screen value, and then just stuck a reverb on it, like a really harsh reverb. Could have even done that in Massive, kind of thing, and then mess with the wet dry values, and you got the sound. Well, this is how I did it. I hope this was helpful. Indeed. All right, I'm gonna post this, and I'm gonna move on to the next one. Yay! I'll have the link for the original track in the description. I'll also have the link to the project file, which I'll put up, and then I'll have a link to the Reddit thread where the requests are taking place. Good. I will see you there.